Hi, it's Writing Wednesday, and I'm going to tell you about a day off I had last week, an unexpected day off, that turned out to be kind of a perfect and idyllic writing day. Now, first of all, it was kind of the perfect day off anyway, because it was due to an unexpected building closure, so there was no bad weather to contend with. I wasn't sick, except for a slight cough from a cold I was getting over, and most importantly, my kids didn't have the day off. Now, I enjoy hanging out with my kids, but because I'm a teacher, we pretty much always have the same holidays and the same days off, so it's very rare for me to get a day off when I have no responsibilities to anyone but myself, and such a day was this past Friday. So my day started here at my aforementioned favorite coffee shop in my favorite bookstore, where I started in a very civilized fashion by getting a hot drink, downloading the New York Times crossword puzzle, and just sitting and doing the crossword puzzle for half an hour or so, just to start off my day. After I'd enjoyed my visit to the coffee shop, I took myself off to this place, which you should already recognize as one of my favorite places, the Memorial University Library. I spent the rest of the morning at the Center for Newfoundland Studies, going through the digital archives of old newspapers and reading the scathing words that the Prime Minister of Newfoundland in 1893 had to say about the shocking prospect of giving women the vote. Going through old newspapers is easily my favorite kind of research. I always love it. And what was great about this time was that I didn't feel rushed. I wasn't in a hurry. I didn't feel like I was cheating anybody by taking the time at the library to do this research, and it was all great stuff that I'm going to be able to incorporate in the novel. When my idyllic visit to the library was over, I met my husband for lunch. I picked up some groceries, went home and did a couple of chores around the house, and then got my kids from school, and it struck me that if I were a full-time writer, this would be my ideal day, and hopefully a lot of my days would be like that. So it was kind of ironic that the same day that I was having this idyllic what my life would be like if I were a full-time writer kind of day, I was also involved in this conversation on Facebook amongst a group of women writers, most of whom, like me, are holding down day jobs and raising families, about when do you find time to write. And while there were a lot of different answers, the getting up early answer, the staying up late answer, the consensus was it's really not easy. Now, there was a time in my life when I was sort of like a full-time writer. That is, there was a 7-year period when I wasn't holding down a day job and writing was the main thing I was doing to earn an income. However, during that time, I was also giving birth to and raising 2 kids, and just to mix it up a little bit, I was also working towards a master's degree in university, although very slowly, 1 course per semester. What with the 2 kids at home, it probably wasn't a really good test case for the ideal full-time writer's life. But what I did learn from that was that if you're trying to make money as a writer, you end up doing so many obscure freelance jobs. Well, I never did get quite as bad as one friend of mine whose most memorable freelance job was writing I think it was a quality control manual for meat rendering plants. Now, when you've gotten to the level of writing that, you're probably thinking you're a pretty long ways away from the creative work that you first envisioned quitting work to do. So when my kids went back to school, I did go back to work. Not just for the steady paycheck, although that was great, but also because I'd gotten really passionate about this place where I'd done my counseling internship, the Murphy Center, which is kind of an alternative education, adult ed program for young adults who've dropped out of high school and want to return. And 7 years later, I'm still there, and I'm still completely passionate about it. To the extent that if a huge chunk of money dropped out of the sky into my lap and allowed me to live the life of a full-time writer, I'm not entirely sure I'd take it, because even more than the paycheck, I would miss the teaching and the interaction with my students and my colleagues and just the atmosphere at the Murphy Center, which is honestly one of my favorite places in the world. But this doesn't get me any further towards solving the problem of when do I find time to write, because I'm still fitting it in around the day job and the kids and the house, and I probably will be for the foreseeable future. For me, the secret is finding tiny snatches of time to write, stealing away to the coffee shop or to the library for an hour at a time, or managing to get in an hour before bed. And it probably helps that I've actually got a really short attention span, so I'm not sure I could focus on a single project for longer than that anyway. But I'm not saying it's easy. It's never going to be easy for anyone to find the time to write, and I honestly think there are people who have quit their jobs or retired from their jobs and who don't have a family to care for, or whose kids are all grown up, who are still struggling to find the time to write, because it's so easy to come up with excuses and it's so easy to fill your life up with other things. Some people fill their lives with what I call para-writing activities, where they spend so much time going to other people's book launches and critiquing manuscripts and sitting on the boards of arts organizations that they're still not making time for their own work. I feel it's a little bit like the thing where if everybody waited till they could afford it to have kids, the human race would have died out a long time ago. If every writer waited until they actually had time to write a book, no writing would ever get done. Kind of like the video I made a few weeks back about where to write, where my final conclusion was you're never going to find the perfect spot, write anywhere. I guess it's the same thing with when to write. I'm never going to find the perfect block of time, so I try to write whenever I can. And for me, that's the best solution I've come up with so far.